ladies and gentlemen, Fen Hampson and I find ourselves in the slightly unenviable position of keeping you from promised drinks, which are aptly but kindly provided by the Canadian High Commission, and we're going to make you work for it, or at least walk for it. I think it gives you in the program it gives you about 5 minutes to do it. That may be slightly harsh on our part. It's 10 minutes southeast of here. It's a big building on Trafalgar Square, and it's a Trafalgar Square entrance. And we'd love to see you all there afterwards for wine and other stuff, presumably. Right, just a couple of things. Perhaps could I get the thanks out of the way first, and not least because I want to thank you first, Fen Hampson and your World Refugee and Migration Council. You were, as stated earlier, the intellectual genesis, some of the actual genesis behind this project, and you stayed with us as we delayed, and we got it just right in the end. But you secured some great speakers, great high-level Canadians, and it was very, very good to have you all here. And also in terms of thanks, Rashmin Sagu, I think, has left us, but she secured the Attorney General, of course, and other important legal minds here today. I'm sure you know this, but of course, the real workers, these things are other people who don't generally get on the stage. That means Lucy Foster in the Global Economy and Finance Programme, Eliza Nzela-Tuche, and Melania Pajonka. Believe me, they did all the work for this. We just bask in their glory. And then last but not least, Creon Butler was kind enough to make a comment about my own so-called expert comment, we call them in Chatham House, slightly weirdly, and said you should read it. And let me say that Creon's expert comment is by far the finest exposition of the side of the argument which advocates caution that I have seen. And it is extremely important that you read it, because if we do this, and of course I think we do, of course we disagree, then it is important we go into it with our eyes open. And it's been a pleasure working with you, Creon, and your team. Right, one other thing. Sorry, bear with me. Just humour me, ladies and gentlemen. Show of hands, okay? It's very unscientific. But would you just raise your hand, please, if you believe we should confiscate the lot, okay? Basically, I know. So I'm sorry to be Manichaean about it, but if you think that you think we should take all of Russia's assets, just raise your hand. Okay, I'm going to say that's about 2/3. What do you reckon? That's about 2/3, and therefore I assume that if you think that we should have a more cautious approach and leave it as a last resort, as per Creon's comment states in the title, please raise your hand. Just so I think if you think we should have a more cautious approach. Oh, actually, that's less than 1/3. So that's I can see 2. Yeah, I'm going to be undecided. Do you want to do undecided? Undecided. Yeah, you can raise. No, okay, fine. Don't worry. Okay, that's slightly educational, but anyway. Right. I'm so sorry. Fen, again, the unenviable position is because you and I have, everything's been said, or has it? So obviously we haven't got the luxury of a presentation or to give our own thoughts here, but I'd love to ask you thoughts of today. Key takeaways, do leopards change their spots? Have you been swayed by anything? Maybe anything on the future? So you have a carte blanche here.
Thanks very much, James, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, Creon, Lucy, your very able team of colleagues for putting together a marvelous set of presentations today. I know how hard you've worked on it, and thank you for listening to a crazy Canadian who showed up at your office saying we should do something together on this about 1.5 years ago. I have a couple of very simple takeaways. One is, do your sums. When's the money going to run out? We've heard that it's probably going to run out by the end of the year, and that's with the infusion of cash the Americans are putting on the table. But you also have to do your sums, as Creon has done in his excellent paper that I would urge all of you to look at. You really have to crank the numbers on the broader financial implications. I think the lawyers have done their job. We don't really need to rehash those arguments again. There is a basis for taking action, and we heard that very powerfully from Philip Zelikow. Second message, we got to watch the clock. This is not a leisurely walk down the lane like the tourists that I see thronging London right now. The clock is ticking on Ukraine's future, and time is running out. That brings me to the risks. Yes, there are legal risks. Yes, there are financial risks. But I think the political risks of the loss of Ukraine, if Ukraine loses this battle, have been laid out in stark relief in our discussion. In terms of options, there are four. There's no go. We don't go after the assets, and the implications are pretty clear. We'll lose Ukraine faster if we don't tap into that money, and the money will go back to Russia. It won't go to Ukraine. There's go slow, and that seems to be the option that's on the table now, which is to tax the interest and to use the $3 or $4 or $5 billion that are accruing from those assets. But there's an uncertain time horizon there. The war might end, and at that point there's nothing to stop those assets returning to Russia. And there's also the risk that a stepping stone becomes a stopping place. There's the go fast option that we've heard, that obviously the audience supports here, putting the pedal to the metal. But I think we also have to recognize you can spend those assets and you still might lose Ukraine. It's not a panacea. It's certainly a much needed transfusion, but I don't think we should be under any illusion that it's going to solve all of Ukraine's military and economic challenges, because the costs of reconstruction, the costs of sustaining Ukraine go well beyond what is sitting frozen in those accounts. There's also the take the bypass option that my Canadian colleague alluded to, which is to do some fancy footwork, to put essentially a lien on the assets, to create a special purpose vehicle, to use the assets as collateral against the reparations, and then to float bonds that governments would have to purchase. It wouldn't just be the G7, by the way. All NATO countries could purchase those bonds, and then to use the monies from the sale of those bonds to send the cash to Ukraine. How quickly that can be done, I'm not sure, but that is another proposal. But I think we've had a very rich discussion of those four options, and thank you, Chatham House, for organizing this conference and having such a clear-headed discussion of the issues.
Clear-headed discussion, very clear-headed exposition of the four options. Thank you very much indeed, Fen. So let me just say this in closing, ladies and gentlemen, because I mean I could sit here as a Russianist and talk about Russia's aims and ambitions, you know, till the cows come home. But my closing point is this. And it is interesting because, you know, again, bringing Korean back into the debate, and you know, Chatham House has environmentalists and nuclear proliferationists and Russianists and all different types, and you know, they all walk into a bar and obviously obsessed with drinks, but and they probably arrive at slightly different conclusions. But we're laying it out for you here. You know, decision makers of the world, if you're out there, obviously not the UK Treasury, sadly, and hopefully you've got enough information to take it away with you and do this. For what it's worth, I did not get into this business to do realpolitik. Yeah, to use this as a part of a piece of leverage in some sort of shabby negotiation. I got into this business really to try to make the world a better place. That's what our mission statement is, and I'm sure that's true if you work in an IFI, if you work in government. And so quite clearly, for me, we should be trying to do the slightly more idealistic things. So sometimes I get told, oh, you're too idealistic, or the moral case isn't the only case. That is absolutely true, of course. There are other equities on the plate. But I just always try to remember what it is that I got into this for. Having left a bank, incidentally, many years ago, to try and do something that I felt would make a little bit of a difference. I don't believe that I do make a huge difference, but I think I've never felt that anything is as important as what we're doing right now. In the 24 years that I have been in this institution, and this is the most important time. I will leave you with that and that alone. Drinks await us, Canadian High Commission, 10 minutes southeast of here.
But could I...